The Council's demand. The chamber of the Galactic Council was not built for humans. Its walls curved high like the ribs of some ancient beast, covered with silver light that shifted with every movement. Rows of alien leaders sat on long seats, their faces cold, their eyes unblinking. Some had scaled skin, others wore living armor that pulsed like a heartbeat. They came from worlds spread across thousands of stars, yet at that moment they shared a single purpose. They had summoned Earth to kneel. At the center of the chamber stood a circular platform. There alone stood Earth's chosen representative, a woman whose name was whispered across human colonies but spoken with contempt by alien tongues. She wore no crown, no shining armor, only a dark suit marked with Earth's emblem on her chest. Her presence was small compared to the towering figures around her, yet her gaze did not waver. One by one, alien voices rose. The treaty was displayed in the air above them, glowing letters written in hundreds of languages. Each line was a command disguised as peace. Earth would hand over its weapons. Earth would abandon its right to explore beyond its sun. Earth would pay tribute in resources every cycle. In return, the galaxy promised safety. Safety from what? No one said aloud. The woman listened in silence as their demands echoed through the chamber. She could feel the weight of eyes upon her. Some aliens smirked, certain she would bow. Others whispered among themselves, mocking the stubbornness of humans. To them, Earth was young, fragile, and unprepared. They believed fear would break her before she even spoke. At last, the council's speaker, a tall being with a long neck and pale silver skin, raised his hand. The chamber quieted. His voice was soft, yet it carried the sharpness of a blade. "You have been offered peace," he said. "Sign this treaty, and Earth will join the order of the galaxy. Refuse, and Earth will stand alone, surrounded by enemies. Choose wisely, human." The woman lifted her eyes to the hologram of the treaty. For a long moment she said nothing. The silence grew heavy, so heavy that even the most confident of the council shifted in their seats. Her hand hovered just above the glowing signature line. All she had to do was press it, and Earth would be spared. But spared of what? She saw the truth written between the lines. To sign was not to gain peace. It was to surrender. It was to chain her people, to let alien rulers dictate Earth's future. She thought of the millions back home, the farmers who tilled the soil, the children who looked up at the stars, the workers who built ships with dreams of freedom. How could she betray them for the false promise of safety? Slowly, she lowered her hand, but not toward the treaty. She raised her chin and let her voice carry. "No." The word was small, yet it struck the chamber like a thunderclap. Murmurs exploded across the council floor. Some alien leaders leaned forward in disbelief. Others laughed, cruel and mocking, as if the sound of her refusal was a child's foolish tantrum. Yet there were also a few who did not laugh, a few whose eyes narrowed with unease. The speaker's expression hardened. "You dare reject the will of the galaxy?" She did not flinch. Her eyes moved across the chamber, meeting the gaze of creatures who had ruled for centuries. "Peace is not slavery," she said. "You offer chains and you call them safety. Humanity does not accept." Her words spread like fire. Every alien voice rose at once. Some shouted threats, some hissed warnings, and some promised that Earth would be crushed. The chamber became a storm of sound, but through it all she stood unmoved. When silence finally returned, the speaker leaned forward. His tone turned sharp, cutting through the air like broken glass. "Then know this, human. The galaxy will not forget your arrogance. Earth will suffer. Your people will beg for the peace you throw away. And when that time comes, do not look to us for mercy." The woman looked at him, and her answer was steady. "We will not beg." Her voice carried no fear. That calm, that certainty, unsettled even her enemies. Behind her, in the shadows of the chamber, a few alien diplomats exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected submission. They had expected tears or silence. Instead, They had seen defiance. It was not the voice of one human they had heard. It was the voice of a species unafraid to stand against the stars. The council adjourned in anger. Some stormed from their seats, others stayed behind, whispering dark plans. The woman turned and walked away from the platform. Her steps were slow but firm, echoing in the vast chamber. She felt the weight of what she had done pressing down on her shoulders. She had defied the galaxy. She had placed Earth on a path of danger, but she had also done something more. She had spoken the truth. And sometimes, truth was sharper than any weapon. Outside the chamber, the view of space stretched across the windows of the station. Stars burned cold and distant. Warships floated in orbit like predators waiting for a signal to strike. The galaxy believed Earth was alone. But as she gazed into the endless dark, she felt no fear. She knew that the decision she had made would awaken something in her people, something the galaxy had never seen before. And in that silence, she whispered only to herself, "Let them come." The stars did not answer, but somewhere, deep within, she felt Earth listening. The threat of isolation, word of the refusal spread faster than light. Within days, every corner of the galaxy was speaking of the human woman who had stood in the council chamber and said no. Her voice had been small, yet it carried across empires, echoing through markets, warships, and the private halls of rulers who thought themselves untouchable. The council, angered by her defiance, moved quickly. Trade routes to Earth were shut down. Fleets that once passed freely near human colonies now turned their guns outward. Merchants who had sold resources to Earth vanished overnight, afraid of punishment. In a single sweep, the galaxy tried to cage humanity without firing a single shot. The alien news networks were ruthless. They called her arrogant, reckless, and unfit to speak for her species. To them, she was not brave. She was foolish. Holoscreens across alien worlds replayed the moment she said no, each time framed as the downfall of Earth. Commentators laughed, analysts predicted collapse, and children on distant planets were taught that humans would soon beg for mercy. But on Earth, the story was different. In the streets of New York, Tokyo, and Nairobi, her image flickered across giant displays. Workers paused to watch. Students huddled in classrooms, their eyes wide. Farmers in dusty fields stopped their plows to listen to her voice replayed through old radios. Some were afraid of what the galaxy would do now that Earth had challenged it. But others felt something else stirring inside them. Pride. Still, the threats grew darker. Alien spies moved quietly through human colonies on Mars and Luna, spreading fear. Supplies dwindled as the blockade tightened. Factories slowed. Ships were grounded, and whispers spread through the ranks of Earth's leaders. Some in power began to doubt. They argued behind closed doors that she had doomed them all. She walked among these leaders with calm steps, but their eyes were sharp with anger. One night, in a high chamber overlooking Earth's orbit, they confronted her. "You have placed us in danger," one of them spat. "The Council will not forgive this," another warned. "We cannot face the galaxy alone," a third whispered. She stood in silence, listening, her hands folded before her. When their voices fell into silence, she finally spoke. "Alone is what they want us to believe. But are we alone?" The question lingered. No one answered, for they did not understand. Far above, alien fleets drifted like wolves at the edge of a village. They waited for weakness, for a crack in the human will. But they did not strike yet. The Council believed pressure alone would break Earth. Why waste weapons when fear could do the work? The woman knew this game. She could see it in their eyes, hear it in the way their words were shaped like poison. Isolation was their weapon, and isolation was dangerous. But it was also a test. Days turned to weeks. On Earth, shelves emptied, and voices of doubt grew louder. Protests broke out in cities. "Sign the treaty," some shouted. "Save us." Others answered back with rage. "No chains, no surrender." The streets became a battlefield of voices, each side louder, each side desperate. She walked among them not as a ruler, but as a figure both hated and admired. Some spat at her feet. Others reached out to touch her hand. Children stared up at her with wide, fearful eyes, asking questions their parents could not answer. She carried their fear with her, but she did not let it bend her. In the silence of night, she stood alone, gazing at the stars. The blockade lights flickered like chains across the sky. To any other world, it might have seemed hopeless, but she saw something the galaxy could not. She saw her people, restless, angry, unbroken. The Council thought isolation would weaken Earth. But in that isolation, something new was being born. She remembered the final words she had spoken in the Council chamber. "We will not beg." Now those words were no longer her own. They were whispered, in factories, painted on walls, and carved into the hearts of people who refused to bow. The galaxy thought Earth would break. But Earth was listening, Earth was changing, and in the shadows where the Council could not see, plans were already being made. Humanity's answer at first, silence, followed her refusal. The Council believed Earth would fracture under pressure. Alien fleets circled the edges of human space, their weapons ready, their engines glowing like watchful eyes in the void. Merchants cut ties, allies turned away, and even neutral traders pretended Earth did not exist. Inside Earth's halls of power, fear grew heavier each day. Leaders gathered in secret chambers, their voices rising in heated argument. Some said the treaty must be signed before it was too late. Others whispered that humanity's pride would only bring destruction. The weight of the galaxy pressed down like an iron cage, and cracks began to form. But something else stirred outside those walls. Among the people themselves, a quiet fire was spreading. In the shipyards of Mars, workers who built freighters stood together after their shifts, whispering about the woman's words. They replayed her voice on old devices, hearing again the steady tone with which she had said no. In the dusty plains of Africa, farmers gathered around radios, their hands rough from labor, their eyes bright with something they had not felt in years: dignity. In crowded cities, students painted her image on walls, not as a politician, but as a symbol. Beneath her face they wrote a single word: defiance. The Council had hoped to break Earth's spirit by cutting it off. Instead, they had awakened something raw and powerful. The turning point came when ordinary citizens began to act. On Luna, miners refused to load shipments onto alien-owned cargo ships. In the oceans of the Pacific, fishermen pulled down foreign banners that had once marked their waters. Across the colonies, voices rose in unison. We stand with her. The galaxy did not understand this. Other species were ruled by monarchs or guilds or great councils that demanded obedience. To them, defiance belonged only to rulers, not to the common people. But humans were different. The woman's refusal had not isolated her. It had spread through her people like a spark in dry grass. Inside the Council chamber of Earth, leaders argued for compromise. They demanded she retract her words, to beg forgiveness before war arrived. She listened as they shouted, their fear thick in the air. Then, without a word, she opened the chamber doors. Waiting outside was not an army, not warships, but the voices of thousands. They had come to the capital unarmed, carrying banners, singing songs, their faces filled with fire. When the leaders saw them, their arguments died. For outside, across every screen, every broadcast, humanity was answering. The woman stepped forward, her eyes calm. "Do you hear them?" she asked, and they did. It was not her voice alone anymore. It was the voice of millions. Alien spies watched this unfold with growing unease. They had expected humans to break into fear and silence. Instead, they saw unity where there should have been division. Reports sent back to the Council carried warnings. Earth is not as fragile as we thought. But arrogance blinded the rulers of the galaxy. They dismissed the warnings as lies, unwilling to believe that humans could stand against the storm. Still, the blockade tightened. Food grew scarce. Factories slowed. Yet in every corner of Earth, people adapted. Farmers shared crops. Workers gave up wages to keep ships running. Soldiers volunteered in numbers unseen in generations. Where one would have bent, the many stood upright. The Council believed pressure would bring surrender. Instead, pressure forged iron. In orbit, the first signs of resistance appeared. Warships of Earth, once kept hidden in secret docks, lit their engines. They were old, battered, and outnumbered 100-1, but when they rose into the void, they carried with them the will of an entire species. Crews saluted their leader not with fear, but with pride. They knew they might never return. But they also knew this: they would not bow. The woman stood on a balcony overlooking the gathering fleets. Her voice was quiet, but it was carried through every channel, every broadcast, to every corner of Earth. They believe we are weak. They believe we will kneel. But look at us. Look at what they fear. We are not weak. We are not broken. We are humanity, and we will not surrender. Her words rolled across the planet like thunder. In the streets, people cheered. In the colonies, banners rose. In space, warships steadied their course. The choice had been made. Humanity would not stand behind the treaty. Humanity would stand behind her. And as the stars burned cold above, the galaxy began to realize something it had never imagined. The humans were not afraid of being alone. They were not afraid of the dark. They had found their answer, and their answer was defiance. Clash of wills. The blockade grew heavier with every passing day. Alien warships surrounded Earth's colonies like vultures circling dying prey. Their engines glowed red in the dark, their weapons trained on human settlements. From the outer rim to the heart of Sol, the message was clear: surrender or be destroyed. The Galactic Council sent one final transmission. Their speaker's face flickered in cold light across Earth's command screens. His words were sharp, each syllable cut from stone. This is your last chance. Sign the treaty, or prepare for annihilation. The Council believed fear would finally break the humans. But the woman stood before the transmission, her expression calm, her shoulders steady. She carried no weapon, only words, yet those words struck deeper than blades. Freedom is not a gift you can give. It is not a chain we will wear. If you bring war, then know this: we will fight. And if we will fall as humans, never as slaves. Her speech spread across Earth and into the colonies. Soldiers repeated it as a vow. Children whispered it as if it were a prayer. And far away in alien halls where rulers watched, some shifted uneasily. They had seen defiance before, but never from a people so young, so unyielding. Then the first move came. An alien fleet entered Mars' orbit, darkening the red sky with the shadows of their warships. Their commanders believed Mars would kneel without a fight. Instead, sirens rang across the colonies and human defenders took their stations. The battle began not with guns, but with silence. The fleets faced each other, waiting, engines humming like the growl of beasts about to strike. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then a single alien ship fired a warning shot, a beam of light that cut through the Martian sky and shattered the ground below. That was their mistake. Human cannons roared from hidden platforms. From the surface of Mars, missiles blazed into the heavens. And from orbit, Earth's ships revealed themselves. Old warships patched with steel, experimental fighters built in secret hangars, even civilian craft armed with improvised weapons. They surged forward, not with fear but with fury. The clash was brutal. Alien ships were larger, stronger, more advanced. Their weapons tore through human hulls like knives through glass. But humanity fought with something the galaxy had never understood: desperation mixed with will. For every ship destroyed, another charged forward. For every life lost, 10 more rose to take their place. The woman watched from Earth's command hall, her face lit by the fire of battle reports. Around her, generals spoke in rushed voices, weighing losses against victories. But she said little. Her eyes were on the greater war, not just the fight above Mars. She knew the Council wanted to break humanity's will, not just its fleets. This was not a war of weapons, it was a war of spirit, and humanity's spirit was holding. News of the battle spread like wildfire. Across the stars, alien citizens who had mocked Earth now whispered in shock. The humans had not surrendered. The humans had struck back. And worse, they had not been crushed in the first blow. The war that was supposed to end in days had become something far more dangerous. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Some rulers demanded a full invasion. Others warned that the humans were too dangerous to underestimate. Old alliances cracked under the weight of fear. What was once a united wall of power began to show fractures. Meanwhile, on Earth, the people stood taller. Cities that had once trembled with doubt now lit their streets with banners of resistance. Songs of defiance rose in crowded squares. Families rationed food without complaint. Soldiers volunteered by the thousands, some barely trained but all willing to stand. The galaxy had believed Earth would bow. Instead, Earth had risen. The woman addressed her people again. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. They think us fragile. They think us broken. But we are not broken, we are sharpened. They see us as alone, but look around you. We are not alone. We are together. And together, we are stronger than their chains. Her words carried across every colony, every ship, every battlefield, and in that moment fear turned into iron. Humanity no longer stood at the edge of collapse. Humanity stood at the edge of something greater. The Council had thrown its might against them, but now for the first time the galaxy began to realize that this war was no longer just about Earth. It was about defiance itself. If humanity could stand against them, perhaps others would rise too. The battle over Mars was not the end. It was the beginning. The defiance that changed the stars, the battle over Mars did not end quickly. For 3 days, fire streaked across the red skies. Alien ships rained destruction from orbit, and human vessels, small but relentless, clawed at their titanic hulls. The void became a graveyard of wreckage, broken steel, shattered glass, drifting bodies. Yet even as their ships burned, the humans did not retreat. By the 4th day, the alien commanders grew uneasy. Their fleets were bleeding resources against an enemy they had sworn would fall in hours. Reports returned to the Council, carrying numbers that should have been impossible. Losses too high, resistance too fierce, and most dangerous of all, human resolve unbroken. Inside the Council chamber, once filled with certainty, cracks widened. Some demanded overwhelming force, a full planetary strike to erase Earth forever. Others warned that such an act would ignite rebellion across the stars. The humans had done what no species had done before. They had shown that the Council could be defied. If Earth was destroyed, that defiance might spread like a disease. While the Council argued, humanity moved. On Earth, factories worked without rest, turning scraps into weapons. Colonists on the moon converted mining lasers into cannons. Even children drew the symbol of defiance on walls as if to say to the galaxy, "We will not bow." The woman stood at the heart of it all. Her presence became more than leadership, it became legend. Soldiers carried her words into battle as if they were shields. Farmers repeated her vow as they dug the soil to feed soldiers. Her voice was no longer hers alone. It had become the voice of humanity itself. The turning point came not from Earth, but from the stars beyond. Whispers of defiance reached alien ears. A small world under Council rule refused to pay tribute. On another, workers laid down their tools and sang the human vow. For the first time in centuries, cracks appeared not only in the Council's fleets, but in its authority. When news of this reached the woman, she stood silent for a long moment. Then she said only one thing. The galaxy has seen the truth. The Council, desperate to regain control, gathered its greatest fleet. Thousands of ships converged on Earth, filling the black with silver fire. It was a display meant to crush hope, to remind all who watched that the galaxy's power was absolute. The humans, outnumbered 100 to 1, had no chance. Or so the Council believed. On the night before the fleet's arrival, the woman spoke to her people one last time. The transmission spread across every colony, every ship, every hidden base. Her voice was calm, steady, almost cold in its clarity. They come with numbers. They come with fire. But they do not come with courage. They will try to erase us. Let them try. For we are not afraid of the dark. We are the fire in it. When dawn rose over Earth, the greatest battle humanity had ever faced began. Alien ships blotted out the stars. Their cannons unleashed storms of light, shaking the skies. Human vessels rose to meet them, their hulls glowing with flame, their weapons firing until barrels melted. On the ground, cities trembled as shockwaves rolled across oceans and mountains. But still, the humans fought. A single ship, its engines failing, rammed an alien cruiser and split it apart. A squadron of fighters out of ammunition flew directly into enemy fire just to buy moments for their comrades. Every sacrifice became a symbol, every act of defiance a weapon stronger than any cannon. And then, something the Council had not foreseen happened. Among the alien fleets, some ships faltered. Crews refused orders. Captains hesitated. The fire of humanity had reached even them. One ship turned its guns away, then another, and another. Soon, parts of the Council's mighty fleet fractured, unwilling to slaughter a people who had shown such courage. In the chamber of the Council itself, panic spread. Their unity was gone. Their fleets were no longer a wall of obedience. Humanity had not only resisted, humanity had broken them. By the time the battle ended, Earth still stood, Cities scarred, fleets shattered, countless lives lost, but Earth stood. The woman walked among the ruins, her steps slow, her face pale with exhaustion. Yet in her eyes burned the same fire. Around her, people rose from the rubble, bloodied but alive, and their voices rose into the smoke-filled sky. Not cries of defeat, but of triumph. The galaxy watched, and in that moment everything changed. The council once feared as untouchable was shaken. The myth of its control had been broken, and the cause of its undoing was not a weapon, not an empire, but a single refusal. One woman had said no. One people had stood behind her, and the stars themselves now carried the echo of that defiance. In the years to come, historians would write that the war began on Mars and ended in Earth's skies. But those who had lived it knew better. The war had begun in a single word spoken in a chamber of giants. No, the woman returned to that chamber one last time. This time she did not stand alone. Behind her were human leaders, soldiers, and even alien envoys who had turned against the council. The seats of power that had once looked down on her now trembled at her presence. She said nothing. She did not need to. Her silence was heavier than their threats. Her defiance had already spoken, and as she left the chamber, the stars seemed brighter. Not because the war was over, but because a truth had been revealed to the galaxy. Earth would never bow. Humanity had claimed its place not by treaty, not by surrender, but by standing tall in the face of the impossible. The woman walked into the light of the stars, and the galaxy would never forget.